Good day and welcome to the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. And good day to everybody around the world watching our day-long coverage of the return of the Expedition 48 crew to Earth from almost 6 months aboard the orbital outpost. We are in the midst of homecoming day for 3 of the crew members on board the International Space Station. NASA's Jeff Williams, the off-going commander of the Expedition 48 increment, along with Russian cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Oleg Skripochka in the final minutes of their preparation before they say farewell to 3 crew members who will remain on board the International Space Station. They will consist of Kate Rubins of NASA, Russian cosmonaut Anatoly Ivanishin, who yesterday became the new commander of the International Space Station for Expedition 49, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency flight engineer Takuya Onishi. Those 3 will remain on board the International Space Station for about 17 days as a 3-person crew until the launch on the afternoon of September 23rd U.S. time, the early morning hours of September 24th at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, of a new 3-member crew, Shane Kimbrough, along with Andrei Borisenko and Sergei Ryzhikov, who will launch to the station to round out Expedition 49. But the focus of attention today is the return to Earth of Williams, Ovchinin and Skripochka, who a short time ago activated their Soyuz TMA-20M vehicle systems, as we will be waiting for the actual farewells between the crew and the hatch closure to the Poisk module to which this Soyuz has been docked since March 19th. Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka are wrapping up 172 days in space, a total journey of 72.8 million statute miles encompassing 2,752 orbits of the Earth. Williams will come home with a total of 534 days in space on 4 flights, including 3 long-duration flights on board the International Space Station, the most days in space by any U.S. astronaut in history. Ovchinin wrapping up his first flight into space, of course, with 172 days on this mission, spanning expeditions 47 and 48. And the 172 days logged by Oleg Skripochka on this mission brings him to a total of 331 days in space on his 2 long-duration missions. During the almost 6 months on orbit for these 3 crew members, they saw the arrival of 6 visiting vehicles, 2 Russian Progress resupply ships, 2 SpaceX Dragon resupply ships, SpaceX 8 arriving with the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module, and SpaceX 9 with the first international docking adapter that was installed on the International Space Station by Williams and Rubins during the first of their 2 spacewalks back on August the 19th. 1 orbital ATK Cygnus resupply ship also arrived at the station during the time frame for Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka's time on orbit, and 1 Soyuz crew vehicle, the very first Soyuz MS vehicle, a modified systems vehicle that brought Ivanishin, Rubins, and Onishi to the International Space Station. Yesterday, about 24 hours ago, Jeff Williams handed over command of the International Space Station to Anatoly Ivanishin in a change of command ceremony that has now become standard and staple for all crews on the day before their departure. We will be replaying that change of command ceremony after the hatch is closed to the Soyuz spacecraft. We're expecting that to happen about 20 minutes from now at 1:40 p.m. Central Time. Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room on console at this hour, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers At the very top of your screen on the right side is Flight Director Mary Lawrence. She is sitting side saddle with the flight director in charge of this shift, Courtney McMillan, a veteran of Russian space operations. And on the left side of your screen, second from the left, is spacecraft communicator Mike Jensen. He is joined on console on the far left of your screen by Daniel Forrestal. They have been talking to the crew during the course of their final preparations leading to the closing of the hatch between the Poisk module, the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, to which the Soyuz TMA-20M vehicle is linked and will remain linked until the undocking some 3.5 hours from now. Another shift of flight controllers will be coming on console a few hours from now, the Orbit 3 team, who will supervise the actual undocking and the landing of the crew. They are working in tandem with their Russian flight control counterparts a half a world away at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. You're looking at a view from a balcony camera of the large flight control room there in Korolyov, where Russian flight controllers have been talking to the cosmonauts during their final preparations for the activation of the Soyuz systems. Once the hatch is closed, the Soyuz commander, Alexei Ovchinin, will place the Soyuz on autonomous power, leading to its undocking and eventual deorbit and landing. We'll go through the timeline of all those activities in just a moment. Once the three crew members say goodbye to their remaining counterparts, Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka will begin final preparations for undocking. They will be housed in the center section of the Soyuz vehicle, a three-section vehicle. The bulbous part of that vehicle at the very top is the orbital module that contains the docking probe and other avionics. The middle section, to which the crew will be strapped in for landing, and the only section that survives the fiery reentry back to Earth, is called the descent module. Ovchinin will be in the center seat as Soyuz commander, as he was 172 days ago for the launch and docking of this Soyuz craft to the International Space Station. He'll be flanked on his left by Oleg Skripochka, who is board engineer number 1 for today's entry and landing. On the right by NASA's Jeff Williams, as they will conduct all of their activities and their support roles to bring the Soyuz home to a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan, about 89 miles to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan. The timeline for today's activities will start, of course, with the hatch closure, following final farewells between the crew members. That will be coming up a short time from now, in about 17 minutes or so. Our undocking coverage later in the day. You'll see the timeline of all the activities later in the day as we make our way through the actual landing of this Soyuz vehicle in Kazakhstan. The undocking itself is scheduled for 4:51 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time, 5:51 and 30 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. This will result in the two vehicles, after hooks are open, the two vehicles, springs on either side of the docking interface, pushing off against one another to create the physical separation that will enable the Soyuz to begin moving away from the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment. There will be two separation burns executed in very rapid order to increase the opening rate of the Soyuz from the International Space Station, placing it a safe distance away from the station for the deorbit burn that is scheduled at 7:21 and 25 seconds Central Time this evening, a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines, basically a braking maneuver to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit for its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. Some 27 minutes after that deorbit burn, as the Soyuz prepares to enter the Earth's atmosphere, the three sections of the Soyuz vehicle will pyrotechnically separate. They that will enable the descent module to have its heat shield facing in the direction of travel to repel the temperatures that will build up and the buildup of plasma around the vehicle as it barrels through the upper reaches of the Earth's atmosphere, with temperatures reaching some 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the atmospheric entry is complete, the heat shield will be jettisoned, and that will enable the soft landing engines and the Soyuz altimeter to be exposed to be able to upgrade the Soyuz computers with data as it makes its way towards its landing site. The command to open up the parachutes on the Soyuz vehicle will be issued just a few seconds before 8 p.m. Central Time this evening, resulting in a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 8:13 and 55 seconds p.m. Central Time this evening, which is 7:13 and 55 seconds a.m. Kazakhstan time on Wednesday morning, September 7th. That will be 24 minutes after sunrise at the landing site. The current weather forecast calls for just a few clouds at 9,000 feet, winds light out of the east at about 8 knots, a temperature at landing time of about 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, landing scheduled on Wednesday morning in Kazakhstan, 24 minutes after sunrise, with ideal conditions expected. A team of NASA support personnel led by Sean Fuller, the Director of Human Spaceflight Programs in Russia, Deputy ISS Program Manager Joel Montalbano, support flight surgeons and other support personnel that includes NASA Public Affairs Officer Dan Hewitt, NASA Headquarters photographer Bill Ingalls, and others, along with the Deputy Chief of the Astronaut Office, veteran astronaut Pat Forrester. They have been in Kazakhstan for the past several days. They were flown on an Antonov 26 aircraft down from the staging city of Karaganda to pre-stage in the town of Jezkazgan, where they presumably are asleep at this hour. They will be awakened in a few hours to make their way to the Jezkazgan airport, where they will board a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters. There are 12 Russian Mi-8 helicopters in the mix to support tonight's landing. As is always the case, the helicopter complement will send 8 of those 12 helicopters directly from Jezkazgan to the prime landing site, where they will be joined by a series of all-terrain vehicles and the Antonov 26 aircraft that will be basically a flying command and control center over the landing site to relay voice, data, telemetry, and other critical information back to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov. 2 of those Russian Mi-8 helicopters will be deployed downrange midway through the nominal landing site and the ballistic landing site, which is about 300 miles to the southwest of the nominal landing site near the Baikonur Cosmodrome and the Kryani Airport just outside of Baikonur. 2 Russian Mi-8 helicopters will be at the ballistic site in a highly unlikely event that a problem would occur that would force the Soyuz spacecraft to land short of its nominal landing site. If you're looking at a view inside the Destiny laboratory of the International Space Station, on your left is the new space station commander, Anatoly Ivanishin. On the right, NASA's Kate Rubins. They will remain on board the station until October 30th with Takoya Onishi. That's the date for their return in their Soyuz MS-01 vehicle that is docked on the opposite side, the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, to the Rosviet module. As we mentioned, the returning crew of Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka, who launched back on March 19th on the Soyuz TMA-20M spacecraft, the last of its genre of Soyuz vehicles, now replaced by the new upgraded modified systems Soyuz vehicles, the MS-01, launched Ivanishин, Onishi, and Rubins back in July. The MS-02 vehicle that is being prepared at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan will be the ticket to ride for Shane Kimbrough, Andrei Borysenko, and Sergei Ryzhikov when they launch on the afternoon of September 23rd U.S. time, just after midnight Baikonur time on the early morning hours of September 24th on a 34-orbit rendezvous to the International Space Station. That will be on the MS-02 vehicle. And there you see floating into the field of view is Jeff Williams and his final moments on board the International Space Station. Williams' 4 flights into space began all the way back in 2000 on the STS-101 mission that incorporated work in the early phase of the assembly of the International Space Station. Williams and his 2 spacewalks on this flight now has accrued 5 EVAs in his career in various stages from start to current status of the International Space Station, totaling almost 32 hours of spacewalking time in support of the assembly and maintenance of the complex. Having a few final words with Kate Rubins there before he makes his way toward the hatchway. Williams wrapping up 534 days in space with this landing later tonight, more than any other astronaut in United States history.
Forward to having them back in our city. And just get you guys in good shape and on the timeline for the hatch closure. Okay, we are about to put that into work and see you very soon on behalf of our entire crew. Greetings and thank you so much for your support through our entire mission. And we're going to put the hatch closing into work ASAP. Thank you so much. Guys, this is Soyuz control room. We're about 3 minutes out from the hatch closing, so please put that into work. Okay, copy.
This is Mission Control Houston, as previously mentioned, and as you heard on the translated space-to-ground loop a moment ago, the crew will be gathering in that passageway leading between the Poisk module and the Soyuz spacecraft just a moment or 2 from now. Final farewells and the closing of the hatch will kick off today's activities. The crew, the departing crew, actually all 6 crew members were up very early this morning for a normal day's worth of preparatory activities. This is Mission Control Houston. As the crew, the departing crew now all buttoned up inside their Soyuz TMA-20M spacecraft, begin the early preparations before they activate an atmosphere purification unit and transfer to the descent module to close the hatch between the orbital module and the descent
What is the
module to which
status?
they
Where
will
are you
strap
at
in
right
for
now?
undocking and landing. Let's go back
We're
24
working
hours
on
and
page
replay the
86
change of command ceremony that
of
took place on Monday,
descent
in which
procedure.
Jeff Williams,
Copy.
the most experienced astronaut in U.S.
Please
history, handed
give a
over
very
command of the
detailed narrative
International
as
Space
you
Station to Russian
send the
cosmonaut
command.
Anatoly
Copy
Ivanishin.
will do. Okay, so you can.
Well, thank you. Welcome everybody to the what is commonly called the change of command ceremony, as we close out Expedition 48 and open up Expedition 49. But really, it's more than a change of command. It's a crew change. The normal rhythm of life on station, which you don't really appreciate, I think, until you've gone through it for the first time. 4 times a year, crews change out half the crew at a time. And it's a significant event. Um, it's a bittersweet time, of course. Alexei, Oleg, and I are ready to go home and be with our families, and we've enjoyed a great stay up here over the last almost 6 months, 5.5 months, and especially enjoyed our stay with the entire crew of Expedition 48. But it's the rhythm of life up here on station to change out 4 times a year. And when we depart now, tomorrow night, these 3, Anatoly, Tak, and Kate, will maybe set the tone just a little bit different. It won't be better, it won't be worse. It'll just be different. It'll be yours, and you'll get ready for the next 3 to show up here in a few short weeks, and then you'll have your own identity. But I think it's a good, and also you will enjoy the time now with just 3 of you on board. It will be a little more quiet, not so many people to have to talk to and interact with, and it'll give you a time to kind of get settled in and make it a little bit more of your own. I've been up here with several crews, as you know, and every one of my crews have been great experiences. I've really enjoyed the folks that I've been able to fly with. But this particular crew, I think you will agree with me, has a special chemistry about it. We have, I think, surpassed what what you would expect from a crew in terms of how we work together, in terms of how we trust each other, in terms of how we know each other, in terms of our friendships, knowing our families and caring about each other and the investments that we've made. So I want to congratulate you all and thank you all for that. It's really made it a highlight experience. We've accomplished a lot during our stay. During our stay over the last 5.5 months, and in particular, we've accomplished a lot in Expedition 48, and I won't rehearse all of those things. I think most of the folks out there know what that is, but it's not insignificant. This is a very significant time, in my opinion, in the life of the space station. Going into the full utilization mode, being that orbiting laboratory that we've always said it was going to be, and just broadening what is going on here on station in ways that I had hoped for, and for a period of time, I have to confess, I wondered if we were going to see it to fruition. Now I'm very confident that we're going to see the exploitation of the International Space Station and take full advantage of the opportunities that it gives for all humankind on Earth. The success that we've enjoyed in Expedition 48 could not have happened without the great support and the hard work and diligent work of the international partnership and ops teams and program teams around the world, in Houston and Huntsville, Munich and Scuba and Moscow. And we could not have done it without you. We're probably the most visible to the public, but we're a very small part of the greater team that makes this all possible. So on behalf of the entire crew, I want to thank the teams, and particularly the teams that were dedicated to Expedition 48. I've got good news for you. Starting tomorrow, you'll be able to get a break yourselves and to spend more time with your families and spend less overtime and working nights and off hours. It's a well-deserved break. You've supported us well. We've always felt confident that you were looking over our shoulder and keeping us safe up here. And as I had said in an earlier conference how much I appreciated and we all appreciated the planning and the attention to detail executed by all of the teams around the world. I also want to take a moment on behalf of the entire crew to thank our families and our friends in each of our respective neighborhoods and homes. We could not have done this without their sacrifice and their support and their encouragement. And for speaking of Alexei, Oleg, and I, we look forward to seeing our families very, very soon. And we know you've been waiting for our return for a long time. So thank you for that. Just a couple of words. I want to, I said in the beginning, this is really not just about the change of command. It's really not about the crew either. Like I said, this is a routine rhythm on board the International Space Station. And especially for the teams on the ground, those that are working in the control centers around the world and in the programs around the world and the partnerships, I want to remind you that this is much bigger than you or us. The International Space Station now spans, it occurred to me this last week, generations. We're in the second generation of crew and flight controllers and engineers and all of the disciplines that take to make this work. And the outlook is good. We're looking forward to another generation, perhaps. There's nothing in the history of spaceflight that comes close to that generational effort, especially in an international setting. So thinking about that this week, it just reminds me that it's important for us all to keep that perspective. It's much bigger than us, and it has a very significant place in history. And of course, we're just the current chapter of human exploration and specifically space exploration. So with that, I want to give an opportunity actually, before I do that, I have a gift for the first-time flyers, for your first flight. And this is a NASA patch, but I'm sure, Alexei, you will accept this. This is the 100-day patch worn by those who have served on the International Space Station on an expedition. So, and 100 days, by the way, is arbitrary. It's just an arbitrary number. I know you're still working toward 100, but you will get your 100. But even if you didn't, if you went home with us tomorrow, you would wear this patch because it's an arbitrary number that symbolizes the flight of an expedition, the execution of an expedition, in our case 2 expeditions on board the International Space Station. So, Alexei, well deserved.
Спасибо, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Пожалуйста, you're welcome. And Kate, there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. With that, Oleg has shared leadership with me on board, being the lead in the Russian segment, and I only go down to the Russian segment for tea because I know among you guys, everything is always in order. So I go down for tea and we visit and I have a good time. But I wanted to give Oleg a chance to say a few words.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd just like to say that we had a really great time on board Space Station. Really enjoyed our being here, our work here. And all we did for this, we just tried to work as a one team. And I would like to wish new crew to work the same way, to enjoy their great time on Earth orbit. And thanks a lot to whole people who is working in International Space Program. Thank you for your support and thank you for your great patience. Thank you.
I would second that. Thank you for your great patience working with us. And I don't think there are any other takers for words, right? So we will go ahead and execute the change of command, and I relinquish the command to Anatoly. Congratulations. The floor is yours.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed the time we spent together at Expedition 48 on International Space Station. And I appreciate, Jeff, your efforts as station commander really did much in order to ensure the success of the expedition. And now with successful completion of all of the tasks, you are ready to go home. I take over the command. I don't have any experience of being a station commander, but I will gain some though, and I'll take care of the crew and the station. And I promise you, when you return to celebrate your first 1,000 days in space, the station will be in perfect shape. And now we understand that it's time for you to start making your final preparation for undocking. Your families have been waiting for you, and we'll be missing you here. And what I have left is just to wish you have fun riding through the atmosphere, enjoy seeing plasma in the windows, and have a very safe and exceptionally soft landing. All the best.
Thank you.
You need to give me a hug. Soft landing.
I think that's it, huh? I've always wanted to say this too. Houston, that concludes the event.
Отвечаю, Бурлак-1. Прошло 4 минуты 20 секунд, давление в стыковочном узле 32. Принято.
We just completed a replay of the change of command ceremony that took place about 24 hours ago, in which Jeff Williams handed over command of the International Space Station to Anatoly Ivanishin. He will be the Expedition 49 commander until he departs the station, along with NASA's Kate Rubins and Japanese astronaut Takaya Onishi on October 30th. Expedition 49 actually will begin formally at the time of undocking of the spacecraft that you're looking at right now. That's the Soyuz TMA-20M. Inside the descent module, the center section of that Soyuz vehicle, are Williams, Alexei Ovchinin, and Alex Gripochka, who a short time ago said farewell to Ivanishin, Rubins, and Onishi, and made their way through the open hatchway in the Soyuz vehicle, closing the hatch at 1:42 p.m. Central Time in preparation for their undocking from the Poisk module, the space-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, undocking scheduled about 2 hours and 48 minutes from now. with the undocking scheduled at 4:51 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time. A bit earlier, there were some technical difficulties with a NASA television satellite on the public channel. We will be replaying a short time from now the actual hatch closure with the 3 crew members making their way inside the Poisk module and the closing of the hatch. We'll get that to you just a few minutes from now. A couple of minor tweaks by a second or so to the timeline for the rest of the day's activities. As we mentioned earlier, with the crew now inside the descent module getting ready to conduct leak checks at the docking interface between the Soyuz itself and the Poisk module. The undocking itself again scheduled at 4:51 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time, 5:51 and 30 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. The Soyuz will move away from the Poisk module and conduct 2 separation burns that will place the Soyuz with a healthy opening rate that will place the spacecraft and its 3 occupants clad in their Russian Sokol launch and entry suits a safe distance away from the station for the deorbit burn, a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde firing, a braking maneuver, if you will, to slow the Soyuz down of 128 meters per second. The deorbit burn now scheduled at 7:21 and 25 seconds p.m. Central, 8:21 and 25 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. Once the deorbit burn is complete, the Soyuz will begin its entry into the Earth's atmosphere. The separation of the modules, the 3 sections of the Soyuz spacecraft will pyrotechnically separate from one another at 7:48 and 32 seconds p.m. Central Time at an altitude of 139.8 kilometers. That will be just before sunrise at the landing site itself to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan, where the NASA landing team is currently housed. They will be getting up in a few hours to make their way to the Zhezkazgan airport to begin boarding Russian Mi-8 helicopters for about a 40-minute flight to the landing site, in which they will arrive in a racetrack pattern around the landing site itself and await the arrival of the Soyuz TMA-20M spacecraft under its large orange and white parachute. The landing currently scheduled at 8:13 and 53 seconds p.m. Central Time. That's the latest from the Russian Mission Control Center. Again, the landing now scheduled at 8:13 and 53 seconds p.m. Central Time, 7:13 and 53 seconds p.m. at the landing site on Wednesday morning. That will be about 24 minutes after sunrise. The landing weather is just about ideal. We're expecting just a few clouds at 9,000 feet. Winds will be light out of the east at 8 knots. Temperature around 66 degrees to greet the 3 returning crew members, Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka.
Принято. Первый замер 6. Следующий замер через 5 минут. Все верно. 22:12.
You were looking at a view for a moment of the Destiny laboratory of the International Space Station. Now back outside, looking at the Soyuz TMA-20M spacecraft, which is attached to the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Inside the center section or descent module of the Soyuz craft is Expedition 48 Commander Jeff Williams, the Soyuz commander Alexei Ovchinin, and board engineer number 1 Alex Skripochka, who will be seated to the left of Ovchinin with Williams on the right of Ovchinin for the descent and landing, just as they were 172 days ago for their launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. This is Mission Control Houston. As we mentioned previously, we had some technical difficulties a bit earlier during the actual time of the departing crew members saying farewell to their 3 remaining colleagues on the International Space Station and entering the Poisk module, and then in turn entering their Soyuz spacecraft. We do have that replay now for those who missed it in real time. This occurred at 1:42 p.m. Central Time, 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time, just about a half an hour ago. Let's take a look at this replay of the final departure of the Expedition 48 crew and their entrance into their Soyuz spacecraft.
Московская станция СГ-1. Включаем запись.
Да, включаем.
Moscow Station, are we go to activate recording? Here we go. Guys, hurry up, please. This is the Soyuz control room. You should be putting the hatch closing into work. So
Alex Skripochka now joining Jeff Williams and Alexei Ovchinin. They're in the passageway as they are about to say farewell to their 3 counterparts before making their way through the hatch. We understand we're having some problems on the satellite. We apologize for that. We're working to rectify those problems as we speak. And the 3 crew members now making their way in as Ovchinin last to wave. Anatoly Ivanishin now will put into work the closing of the hatch on his side of the docking interface, joined by Takoya Onishi on the right side of your screen.
Московская станция СГ-2.
Так, Толя, мы тебя слышим и видим. Ребята, приступайте. Все нормально. Мы видели, экипаж ушел. Приступайте к закрытию люков.
Понял, приступаю к закрытию люка МИМ-2.
Хорошо, Толя, мы вас видим. Хорошо, все нормально.
Kate Rubins now with her back to the camera as she shoots a few final pictures, and the hatch to the Soyuz now closed at 1:42 p.m. Central Time, 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time. The hatch to the Soyuz vehicle now closed, and the hatch on the Poisk side of the docking interface also closed. So hatch closure occurring at 1:42 p.m. Central Time, 2:42 p.m. Eastern. Once again, hatch closure occurring at 1:42 p.m. Central Time, 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time. Hatches on both sides of the docking interface are closed. This will set the stage for leak checks to be conducted on both sides of the docking interface to make sure that we have a tight seal before the depressurization of the passageway between the docking interface down to vacuum that will be the precursor to the undocking of the Soyuz from the International Space Station at 4:51 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time this afternoon.
Go ahead on SG2. We just wanted to report that MRM-2 transfer hatch is closed. And we confirm via the telemetry. Can we switch off the recording then? Please stand by. Shall we stand by in here or where?
Анатолий, в принципе, можете запись выключать, а камеру пока нет.
Anatoly, you can stop the recording right now, but keep the camera on for the time being. All right. The recording will be off, OFF, and the camera will be on. Burlax, Moscow, how do you read it?
With the hatches having been closed just a few minutes ago at 1:42 p.m. Central Time, 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time, the Soyuz commander, Alexei Ovchinin, has placed the Soyuz on autonomous power. And now the crew members who will be returning home in a few hours, Ovchinin, Skripochka, and NASA's Jeff Williams, the off-going Expedition 48 commander, will begin work to check their side of the docking interface to make sure it is airtight before the crew depressurizes the interface, the vestibule between the Soyuz and the Poisk module. This is Mission Control Houston. That was a replay of the final farewells by Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka, and the closing of the hatch between the Soyuz TMA-20M spacecraft and the Poisk module to the International Space Station that occurred about 35 minutes ago at 1:42 p.m. Central Time, 2:42 p.m. Eastern Time. Since the closing of the hatch, the three departing crew members, Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka, have depressurized the vestibule, the small interface passage between the Soyuz and Poisk. They're in the process of conducting leak checks across the docking interface. That will set the stage for them to transfer into the descent module, the center section of the Soyuz spacecraft, to begin donning their Sokol launch and entry suits. They'll conduct leak checks to that suit to their suits, and then they'll strap themselves in to their respective seats in the descent module, with Ovchinin, the Soyuz commander, in the center seat. To his left will be Alex Skripochka, and to his right will be Jeff Williams. The timeline calls for the Soyuz to undock from the Poisk module at 4:51 p.m. Central Time. Two separation burns will move the Soyuz away to a safe distance away from the International Space Station for the actual deorbit burn itself that will take place at 7:21 p.m. Central Time tonight, a 4-minute, 41-second braking maneuver to allow the Soyuz to drop out of orbit for its high-speed entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. The three sections of the Soyuz will pyrotechnically separate from one another at 7:48 p.m. Central Time, leaving the crew in the descent module itself, its heat shield repelling temperatures that will build up to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit as it makes its way towards the Earth's atmosphere. The chutes will begin to open in sequential fashion just before 8 p.m. Central Time as the Soyuz makes its way toward the landing site to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. First a drogue chute followed by its main chute, and then just a few seconds before touchdown, soft landing engines will fire in a final braking maneuver, touchdown scheduled at 8:13 and 53 seconds p.m. Central Time, 7:13 and 53 seconds a.m. Kazakhstan time on Wednesday morning, just 24 minutes after sunrise at the landing site. The NASA landing team and the Russian Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces have all gathered to pre-stage in the town of Zhezkazgan, which is about 89 miles or so to the northwest of the landing site itself. They'll be making their way in a few hours to the Zhezkazgan airport to board a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters to fly towards that remote landing site on the southern steppe of Kazakhstan. So with the three expedition crew members, Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka, now inside their Soyuz spacecraft making preparations to don their Sokol launch and entry suits, we will wrap up this broadcast with a programming note. We will be back on the air in about 2 hours and 10 minutes from now at 4:30 p.m. Central Time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the undocking of the Soyuz from the International Space Station that will formally begin Expedition 49 under the command of Russian cosmonaut Anatoly Ivanishin. So we'll call it a broadcast. Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka in their final hours on board the International Space Station, now inside the Soyuz TMA-20M spacecraft, ready to depart just a few hours from now. Until we're back on the air at 4:30 p.m. Central, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, this is Mission Control Houston.